How do women in gaming feel about Cheeto dust on my fingers?
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Alien Familiar RPG Podcast. I am Clayton.
I'm Jordan.
I'm Beth.
I'm Hayley.
I'm Lanina.
I'm Nina.
Kyle Perkins.
And before we get started, I just want to remind our listeners that you can find show notes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. We are on Facebook at facebook.com/alienfamiliar. And I personally am on Discord as DM Scorpio number 0660. And I have created a channel for Alien Familiar Media. Today, we are going to be talking about gaming stigmas. And in particular, we are going to be talking about women in gaming and the trials and tribulations that women face at the gaming table. We are going to be focusing on aspects of gaming as or with gamers who do not self-identify as male. And I've tried looking up some demographic statistics on gender ratios in gaming, and particularly in tabletop gaming, there really isn't any. So I pulled some video game statistics.
I've actually got some.
You do?
They're a little outdated, but...
Go for it.
The best I could do, there was a Wizards of the Coast survey done in the year 2000, and there was also a Gen Con survey done in 2004. Do you want me to read the statistics now? You want to start out with that? Okay, so the Wizards of the Coast survey, and this was done specifically for pen and paper RPG players. We've got age-wise, I guess I'll start there. The largest demographic category here, we got 34% of players were 25 to 35, 25% of players 19 to 24, 23% of players 12 to 15, and then 18% of players 16 to 18, with 81% of their people they surveyed being male. The Gen Con survey, now what I don't know is if this was, like, sponsored by Gen Con, the organization, or if this was merely the 2004 Gen Con attendance. But what I have is that Gen Con produced demographic data of pen and paper RPG players in 2004. 77% were male, 23% female. And we've still got that 25 to 34, this one says, demographic being the main age group playing at 44%. Then we've got 35 to 44-year-olds on this survey coming in next, and it trickles down to low percentages from there, with the smallest being 13 to 17. Also, if you're curious, 40% of pen and paper RPG players make $75,000 or more. I fall into the let's see here, the 13% category. 49% of them are college graduate, bachelor's degree. The next highest being some high school or some college, followed by 20% having a postgraduate degree.
How do they have the time?
I don't know.
To play this nerd game?
I don't know. 100% of them have access to the internet, possibly because the survey was done via the internet.
Oh.
That's what I've got.
So your demographics are very similar to the ones I pulled. I pulled from Entertainment Software Association's annual list of statistics. And in 2003, the divide for video games was approximately 71% male, 29% female. In 2016, their breakdown was 59% male, 41% female. And ironically enough, 2014 seems to have been the year when women got into video gaming, because the divide was 52% to 48%. And I have to assume that in 2014, women got into online gaming and had absolutely terrible experiences and have been dropping off ever since.
Well, that's when Gamergate happened.
Yeah.
2014 was Gamergate, I'm pretty sure.
That's true, yeah.
Fucking Gamergate.
God. Okay.
So we're going to be talking about probably some of the absolutely awful experiences that happened at the table.
Another quick demographic note I found: Google did a survey very like within the past 2 months on mobile gamers, and a full 50% of mobile gamers are women, even though the mobile game development industry is still predominantly male.
Yeah.
What?
I'm trying to find the joke about Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, but it's just not there. It's fine.
So, Beth, do you want to start off with some of your experiences, because this is a topic that you have particularly wanted to talk about from the very first time I mentioned doing this podcast.
But I wanted to kind of start out with the women at the table, maybe talking about what's like any specific occurrence that they've had, preferably in tabletop gaming. But if you haven't had something in tabletop, you can go for like, you know, other types of gaming, video games or whatever. What sort of like experience that, you know, that happened because of you being a female that had the most effect on you. I know that one of my like early and like really affecting experiences, I've mentioned it once before, but it was like whenever Clayton and I hadn't been going out for very long, and it was, I think, the first game I played in, and I played a centaur character, and Clayton's best friend at one point, somebody asked like where my character was, and Clayton's best friend said something about how, where Clayton's character was, and he said that he was off somewhere eating a centaur. And, you know, it was just
mean
like,
cutting you up.
no, that does not mean that. And the thing that I had never told Clayton about it was that then there was one other female in the group who was also married to another person who was in the group. And she came up to me afterwards and said, and let me know that she had a crush on the guy who had made that comment, and told me I better back off. Because he made a comment about me, I better back off of him. So just to open it up to that, it's not necessarily always men that make, you know, the gaming experience uncomfortable. Yeah. Sometimes it can be other women. Sometimes you kind of get that effect of, especially if somebody has been the only female in a group for a long time, where they kind of almost feel like you're blowing up their spot.
They've been ruined by all the men. The men turn them into one of them. That's what happens.
That's what it feels like. So I'm curious what other kinds of experiences other people have had.
Well, I want to just jump directly off of what you just said, and that, like you had said, that it was my best friend at the time who had made that comment. And that was the first, and unfortunately it was only the first time that I had known somebody. I thought I knew them well, and then this situation comes up in the game, and something absolutely horrible comes out of their mouth that I had no idea that they were even capable of thinking. And unfortunately, it was not the first time, and it was not the last time. Well, it was the first time, but it was not the last time that this had happened.
Yeah.
It's like something about somebody of a different gender being at the table allows you to just suddenly become this person who says awful things. It's like there's some sort of a switch that goes off in some people's minds.
Yeah, and I want to also, before other people say their experiences, that I want to make it clear, you know, before we start, that I don't think, like, everybody's capable of, like, a slip-up, of saying something that you know, you think is funny, but it actually turns out not to be. And so, like, an occasional slip-up does not make you a jerk, but, like, once you've been told, like, this makes people uncomfortable, or you should have been able to tell, you know, from the atmosphere around, the atmosphere around the table, that, like, people are not enjoying it. Like, if you continue harassing at that point, that does make you a jerk. So we're not just saying, you know, that you can't ever say anything, but just that you need to be aware of how it affects other people.
I have a very similar story in that sense. When I was first starting out, I was playing D&D 3.5. It was my freshman year of college, and I was not the only girl in the group. There was actually several girls in the group. But I'd always felt like I was specifically targeted because I like to play face characters, and I felt, and it was like the DM would like continuously make circumstances where my character would have to be taken advantage of.
DM was male, I assume.
Yes. it even got to the point where, like, my character actually got, like, sexually assaulted in the game. And then I got punished because my character decided to take revenge. And they put me in the circle of hell and I had to break out. It was rude. But that's not the point of the story. There was another girl in the group and they were playing, originally, it was her boyfriend. And she didn't want to completely play the game. So she's like, okay, I'll just be a voice in the character's head. And then we had, like, a crystal and we made it a second character. And his character would continuously flirt with my character. And I was like, nope, don't want any of that. Keep your weird cat dick away from me. Yeah, and
Do you ever forget we're talking about D&D?
Yeah. And she would continuously, like, get upset about this, and she stopped coming to games. And then she would message me about how I was making it feel uncomfortable for her to be in games. So it's like, I'm not flirting with your partner. And it got to the point where he, not to my wanting, ended up being my character's baby daddy, which is, I don't want to raise your weird kids, but it was awful. And I felt like I didn't get a say because people didn't believe me when I say, like, well, yeah, my character doesn't want this, or I don't want this, because I was playing a very facey character, and that's all, it's me. I mean, they would take time out of games, be like, oh, let's like, punch up our character sheets and, like, try and shoot them down my shirt just because I wear low-cut shirts, because I'm a hoe. But they don't get to say that. Only I do. It was just very strange, because I felt like, yes, I might play over-sexualized characters, but that does not mean I am an over-sexualized person. And I felt like that gave them, they felt that they had the right and the opportunity and the freedom to take advantage of me in that way.
Right.
And it was really awful. And I felt like I lost a lot of friends looking back at it, because I'm not as close to them.
That's the first story I've ever heard about a game that involved baby daddy being an element.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, we have 2 kids together, and I didn't even get to name them. I'm very salty about it.
I've heard the story so many times, but it never fails to, like, gross me out.
Yeah.
Through my reading, I've found that a lot of male players tend to push in the ideas of rape culture into D&D games a lot more because they think it's okay because it's fiction.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the stuff that I found while looking through everything. I've never personally experienced it, but I've heard encounters like Hayley's through a bunch of my friends.
On the off chance that some of our listeners are unfamiliar with the finer details of what might make up rape culture in gaming situations, does anybody have any examples of what you might mean? Fictional or otherwise, you know? They don't have to be real.
Having
situations.
your character have to do a drink check every time she goes into the tavern because someone might want to slip something into her drink, or having that actually happen. Yeah, that my character got day raped in a game, and it was awful, and I had to deal with those consequences. Without
Who
are
you playing with?
Freshman year, it happened, and I took, and then I made it a side quest to track him down and cut off his horns, and then I got punished for it as a player because I was derailing the game. He was a satyr.
What game was this? D&D?
D&D 3.5.
Okay.
I feel like,
things like that will happen all the time, or they'll, like, make, like, he'll only deal with you if you show him your chest.
That's
stuff like that. Very small
Chest of loot, right? Like you got some like scale mail in there.
Yes, or your booty.
That's
for
the one
example.
I hear about. That's the one I hear about most often, where, like, DMs won't let you go through unless the girl flirts with the NPC, and I'm like, that's weird, guys. That's really weird.
I don't like that. But I mean, I have a very extreme case, but there's small micro aggressions that really make it uncomfortable for us, because it feels like we can't play the game because at every single step we have to be like, oh, yep, that's right, I'm the only female character.
Such as a very charismatic woman-faced character consistently gets flirted with by everybody, where it's a charismatic male character and they're too afraid to talk to him, and so he's just gonna get through on his own because he's so attractive.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a couple more examples.
Would that, like, kind of also apply to, like, when fictional DM is dealing with a male player and there is a situation where there's bartering happen? The DM would never even cross their mind to think of anything but their actual booty and loot and chest of gold. Whereas with a female player, I'm assuming that there is automatically like sex or something of that nature on the table in the bargaining just because they're female.
Story time, very short.
All right.
Same group. It was another female player who did this. They tricked my character. It was like, oh yeah, I want to be friends with you because I felt like they weren't enjoying the game. They were very murder hobo-y. They took my character and tried to sell me off for gold so they could do their own party things. And it was really upsetting that, like, every single chance that my character wanted to do something or be friends with someone, I'd have to be worried that I would be kidnapped and sold off for gold, when all I want to do is fight a dragon. Really fucking sucks. Especially when people are just like, my character was traded for gold many a time.
That's so weird.
Yeah, I was my first time playing D&D, so I didn't really have any other experiences.
Oh, no.
So I thought that's just how it went. And now that I've been able to play so many more games, I've been having a better opportunity.
Other versions of that is visual differences between male and female characters in general. Like, you look up D&D. Female elf. Where are her clothes? She must be cold. She has, heavy armor, and it covers
Nothing.
very little.
Yeah.
A chest plate, finger quotes, air quotes, chest plate.
I hate boob plates so much. I've got like the one pet peeve of I have many in this topic, but that is like the right at the top because it's
a lot of those outfits where like the bottom part just goes right into the middle of her legs, and so both thighs are out, and she's like casting a spell, one of those. Mm-hmm. And then you look up like D&D male elf, and he's like fully robed and mysterious.
Swimwear by Rob Liefeld.
I hate it so much. It's one of my biggest issues with this. Especially because you can't ever find good reference pics. Ever.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Drawing, my friends call me out because I draw like a 12-year-old boy, but...
Your friends, you can say I call you out because you draw like a 12-year-old boy who's never actually seen a woman before.
I haven't. I'm blind.
You're right. My bad.
But there's no good reference photos whenever I want to draw something or be like... It's really hard
just go
to find things.
Google D&D female elf, and you'll see what I mean.
Doing it.
Do it.
I mean,
should I like incognito tab this or? I want to give a shout out to the what's the subreddit called? I think it's just RD&D. I think DND. The subreddit. There was a thread recently where one of the moderators was telling people, this is a bit of the opposite, I suppose. They were like, hey, we get a lot of custom commissioned art posted here. People say, I paid an artist to draw my group. And they were like, I want people to stop assuming that every single sexualized or scantily clad character was done against their will, and that they should like contact the artist and chide them, because 9 times out of 10 on this subreddit seems to be someone being like, no, actually that's how my character dresses. I wanted my character to dress like that. I told the artist to draw them like that. Of course, it's the internet, so this person could actually be a guy masquerading as a woman, and, whatever. But
that's also with commissioned art of the person actually saying this is what my character looks like, as opposed to like
just random art
that dudes draw for, I'm assuming, their own enjoyment.
What was that? There was a game. There was a new game out with a very intriguing female character model.
The snow bunny lady with the what is that? It's a game. It's like a JRPG. And there's a character who has like double G's that don't sag. She has an arch butt. Her body looks like Yoshi.
I think
her heels are insane.
Dragon's Crown.
That's
probably.
It.
Yeah, it's insane.
Yeah, it's horrifying.
Please share.
No.
I don't want to accidentally cut off the mic. You guys are gonna have.
I can have it on my phone.
Here. I'll tilt it as best I can. It's upside down.
I will try to remember to put a
photorealistic
link in the show notes on this picture that
Their
is being
heads are so
shared.
small.
It's real weird.
It's really bad art.
Actually,
I mean, not the worst part.
Their
but
walk
it's so
cycle
tiny.
is
It's
really weird. Oh, it's so strange.
By my masculine notions here, a Google search for female elf, click images, is actually not as bad as I was expecting.
Yeah, but
There are a lot of cleavers. There's a lot of cleavers. There's like a lot of
There's a lot of very see-through clothing.
This is also like the armor that we get and whatnot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of diaphanous robes and stuff.
You'll probably get something much different if you filter for results that are like pre-2010.
Like, look at the differences.
That's a nipple.
That's exciting.
Yeah. No, I mean you're absolutely right. There's
like not that bad is considering that you don't see
I think
every
elf is
picture
also.
with cleavage.
I think elf is also a bad way to start because like elves are just
do
like
orcs.
that.
It's worse. Do orcs. It's worse.
So elves are, you know.
I actually don't know. I have
For
not
the racial
done.
description.
Yeah, in the D&D book, it's just
okay.
elves
Female,
are like that.
Female orc is worse than female elf when you search it. Like, look at this bullshit.
Gross.
I don't like it. Also, like
Now if I
fighter and like female rogues. Like
Draw
in
me
review
like one
classes
of your
and
elf
stuff.
girls.
This perusal through Google
Yeah, this
Images
is super
working
fun.
great for the podcast.
I know. I was like, this is a really good audio.
Oh yeah, you're
medium.
absolutely right.
But I also think this really ties in with like another point I wanted to make, which is just because you play a character that you've decided is going to be, you know, scantily clad or whatever, does not therefore give everybody else at the table permission to then turn around and you know, treat you however they feel like.
Like we were talking about with the rape culture stuff.
Right,
and how Hayley's
exactly.
characters are treated and stuff.
Yeah. I had one instance where I was in a group, it was whenever we did that overnight game with like 11 or 12 people, it was ridiculous, and I was the only girl, and I was playing a bard, and I don't even think I said anything about being like scantily clad or anything like that, but people were constantly like telling me that my character needed to take her clothes off and like dance on the table or something
Don't
like
worry,
that.
even if you don't say it, it's assumed.
Do you think these men would act like that towards women in their friend group in real life if they were, say, at a bar?
No, but
Yeah.
that's because it's a fantasy realm and they can do whatever they
Yeah,
want.
that's
That's not
not
me.
me.
It's my character.
It's not
Yeah,
real.
because
That's the point.
because they're thinking, I'm not doing it to you, I'm doing it to your character.
Character.
And they think that that's different, and it's really not.
And it's not me doing it. It's my character.
Because
Oh, yeah.
it's right, exactly. It's character to character. It doesn't have anything to do, and you can still make somebody, you know, extremely uncomfortable doing things that are.
Because then there's some
Supposedly.
part of them that still imagines doing this to some
It's weird.
female type, and it's awful.
Right.
I have a question. So, Hayley, you mentioned a little while ago that you like to play, kind of sexualized characters that doesn't, reflect you as a person. But when you make a decision on various things about your character, who they are, there's something that you're trying to do with the character. And so when you decide on those character properties, what are you trying to make happen or get out of that in the game?
So I like to make sexual characters because that's my fantasy. I like to play these very beautiful women who are just like, I'm amazing and I can do whatever I want. Because I don't feel like that in real life. So what I want is, yes, I would not mind if an NPC came my way. But the problem is that when they feel very entitled to my character and her body, and specifically when in my first dating group, I literally had to do date rape checks every time I did something. And Beth the Fae wasn't even scantily clad. She was just a small, tiny fairy who wanted to save the world. And if I feel like there is a difference between having a character who's just like, my character, it's a part of her nature, like Selixer for Nina. Lanina in the last game was a sexual character, but every single instance was she initiated it. She even had a card or those things, or it would never be that's the sex fish, gotta sex that fish.
Wait, but I mean that's how I interact.
Yeah. But it was also, agreed upon, and it should never be taken that, because you're a sexualist character, of course you're gonna want to do this. Of course you're gonna want to make the distraction by taking off all your clothes.
I think that's because Clayton is like a decent human being.
Yeah,
would
you're
not make you.
A+.
Interesting.
Make you roll date rape checks.
Here's
Also,
Yep.
sorry, I have such a. What blows my mind about stuff like that is does that not make the group uncomfortable when the GM is doing that to a character? If Clayton was suddenly just and a guy comes over and fucking gropes Elixir, and I'm like, that's weird, that makes me uncomfortable that you're saying that to Nina's character, that makes me uncomfortable this is happening.
Yeah.
Is that not a thing that people feel?
Specifically in this group, I don't think that would have bothered me, because we would all know that Clayton was doing that to piss off the rest of us so that we would murder that character.
No, but even hearing my friend Clayton, that I trust and respect as a person, hearing this man tell that to my dear friend Nina, who I trust and respect, is a weird thing.
Even, like, the idea of putting something like that into a game without talking about it prior is kind of shitty.
Yeah. Every horror story that I hear and have heard about this boils down to, this is something that non-male players have to deal with, in that it is taking away agency of the character. It is taking away the power of the character.
Yep.
And those are the two core aspects of being able to have a character in this game that we are getting around the table to play, so that we can have a character who has agency, who has power, who has the ability to affect the world. And in all of these situations, it's the nastiest parts of what actually happens in the real world bleeding over into this fantasy world that we are playing.
Yeah, I think you said everything really well. Like, it takes away agency and it takes away, like, our say in our characters. But on the lasting note of that is, this is a fantasy world. And there's so many cool things. We could slay a dragon. We could literally become fucking kings or gods. Why would we waste time being sexually assaulted? Because I have to deal with that in my regular life on a daily basis. Right. This is a fantasy game where we try to escape and play and have fun, and there's nothing fun about sexual assault. So please stop putting it in your games.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's so much about agency as it is about the sexual aspect. Like, you know, if a female character is up at a bar and somebody walks up and tries to, you know, steal their coin purse or stab them in the back, that would be a totally different experience than, you know, walk up and grab your butt, right?
Yeah, that means a character, like any thief, that could happen to anybody, but specifically with, like, grab your butt, it's, like, very clearly a gendered fight. It's a gendered thing.
Also, in my opinion, it's a pointless thing, because you mentioned, like, having a character come over to a woman sitting at the bar and having them steal that character's coin purse achieves the same thing plot-wise and storyline-wise without being bad and gross and terrible and stressful.
Yeah.
And in a game, everybody who is sitting around this table, by show of hands, who has had someone touch them inappropriately, completely out of the blue.
My hands
That's,
up.
Yeah. Do you want to be reminded of that whenever you're trying to play this character?
Absolutely fucking not!
By the way, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5 of the 7 people sitting around the table raised their hand at that.
Wow, we're like a statistic.
Sorry, that shouldn't be as funny as it is. I have a thing that I want to talk about. It's a little bit separate.
Great, I would love to not talk about this.
Okay, cool.
Are we closing this? Are we going to close this?
Oh, well, it's kind of related. Anyway, let me just say my thing, apparently. I don't have a lot of horror stories about gaming. Like, I actually don't have any horror stories about gaming with D&D. And I was actually while you mentioned asking for, like, horror stories and bad things that have happened, I kept trying to think of, like, why, and it's defo because,
Don't that's recorded.
No.
Definitely.
I veto it.
Okay, I'm pouring my heart out to you guys. Come on. Anyway,
we're defo.
It's defo because I've been like at every turn prior to like prior to like joining this group. At every turn, I've been like barred from gaming, and I don't mean that in like a very like you're not allowed to game because you're a girl, but it's always just. When I was in high school, I had a friend group of like that were mostly dudes that played D&D, and when I wanted to play with them, they were like, "Oh, well, it would kind of ruin the atmosphere to have you there." And then my boyfriend at the time had a separate group where he gamed, and I asked him if I could play, and he was like, and I asked him to help. Like I've never played before, so I asked him help me make a character, and he like made. Terrible character that was like a face character bard that's real sexy and cute, and I'm just like, that's not what I want to play.
It's a Hayley character.
Yeah, and as you know, I could never play a Hayley character. And then I got to college, and every time, like the first person that I really became friends with here had a D&D group, and it was just a bunch of dudes that made me really uncomfortable every time I interacted with them. So, like, at every turn, and, like, this isn't just D&D related, it's video games, it's Magic the Gathering, back when I wanted to play Magic, and it's just all of these things have stopped me from playing. So I don't really have horror stories, but I don't want that to make it seem like this is not a problem that I face.
Right.
You
You've
just
definitely
face it.
had experiences that have kept you from being in gaming as much as you would have liked to be.
That's very relatable. I can understand that. Guys suck. Fun fact. Especially, like, high schoolers. Ugh.
Which is when, like, most of the people, I don't know about this group, but most of the other people I know that played D&D got into RPGs in high school, and
I mean, I didn't get and started
wasn't
in college.
available to me. That's what I was actually thinking about when you brought up the statistics of, like, why there aren't that many women who play RPGs according to the statistics, and, like, that was one of the things I thought of.
Those are like 15-year-old surveys. I do think it's changing.
That too, but
I wish I
also-
knew how much.
There's, like, the thing I faced with trying to get into gaming, and then also, on a tangent, I kind of want to know how they gathered information for that, because it was probably more available to dudes.
So when we'll link this in the show notes, that year 2000 Wizards of the Coast survey that was done, there's a blog by someone who worked in market research and analytics, so they claim, who analyzed that full survey and the methodologies used to poll people, and they've got some pretty major problems with the way that Wizards found their random samples. And Clayton, his initial opening for this episode is pretty much correct. It's exceedingly difficult to find good data on tabletop RPG player demographics. I don't know why. It's really stupid. It's a, hobby that I've heard a lot of, like, I have no data to back this up, but a lot of people seem to think that the hobby is, quote, graying. People are getting older and younger fans and players aren't coming in, but maybe it's because we live in a college town, but I go into the comic shop and see groups of young people all the time. I don't know. I wish there was more information about this, but I think that our, being a bunch of amazing, wise, talented, attractive people here, our fingers are on the pulse of this hobby.
I love the way you phrase the comic book thing, because it implies that you are not a young person in the comic book shop. Which, like, you realize that you were one of those young people in the comic book shop in that
Well,
concept.
in terms of demographics, I fit into the most active group, the, like, 25 to 34. But
okay.
It's younger than 25. It's the youth. It's the kids. It's the young jive talkers who are out there in the streets beating the meats.
On a topic of the young
Women in gaming.
No, you'll eventually get to it.
No, Nina wants to talk about a thing.
All right, I'll shut up.
Well, it doesn't directly correlate. It was just bounced off of yours, and if you had a thing to specify off of KP's thing, I don't know.
No, I talk a lot all the time, and I would like to hear your voice more than I'd like to hear mine.
I have a very specific, like, bad memory associated with one of my favorite characters and favorite game that I did, and it didn't happen until the very end, nor did I notice. But we were playing with 3 people, and this is bouncing off of Beth's, like, what's your experiences thing? And it was a Star Wars-based RPG game. It was kind of homebrew, kind of taken bits and pieces between 3.5 and the Star Wars game, but I don't know if you've played the Star Wars RPG. It's not great. It's not great.
Oh, which one?
Don't remember.
It was
Probably
D20, right?
Probably
Yeah.
D20 not revised.
Yes, that's the one. I have the PDF still and the files buried. But it was me and 2 guys. 2 very dear friends of mine. And it started off alright.
Who was it? Put them on blast.
No. But as the game progressed, we had players come in and out. Sometimes we had 3 guys and me, and then sometimes we had like 4 guys and me, never another girl for some reason.
Can't imagine why.
But I was playing a very specific character who just so happened to be mute. Because we rolled negatives to our character, and I got like, you either can't see, hear, or talk. And considering that I was going to be a Jedi, I needed to see and hear. And then as the game progressed, me and this other player were the only 2 that stayed around. But it always felt like I was a step below. I always felt like I was struggling a little harder. And it didn't really hit until the very end when we were getting our final levels And the DM looked to the other male character and is like, I'm going to make you level 40 and she's going to stay at level 38, so to speak. And you get to rule this said new Jedi Order or whatever order while she remains your underling. And I was just like, I'm sorry. You're trying to what? You're going to where? And he didn't even realize that he was favoring him this entire time, putting me in damsel in distress situations where I didn't have control. It was a DM moment, and he's like, you're trapped underneath this person. Other male, it is your time to shine. What do you do?
Because the rest of the game wasn't his time to shine.
Did that person fall on you and accidentally grab your boobs, like every anime ever?
No, thankfully. Because we were... And by the end, I had realized it as well, much later than I, because I was just like, it feels like... It looks like the GM is favoring you. I don't quite know what to do. He's trying to make you, ruler of the world. And then the stay-at-home mom. With our... Yeah. It was pretty bad. I think at one point, I went dark side for a little bit, and then into the gray zone. And he even physically tormented me to give me that Sith feel.
I have nothing to say about that.
We're all gonna explode.
Just a fun thing where, for some reason, every woman's backstory has to be traumatic to make them, like, a strong female character. I hate it.
Yeah.
It's bad and dumb.
But it was negative experience, and I still think it's one of my best characters. Why? I don't know. Maybe because as, like, the mute character, I had, like, a pad.
Datapad?
Yep.
Wow, all these nerds and nobody.
I had a data pad to, like, do the talking for me and stuff like that, but I think the fact that my character was mute and that I had to force them to pay attention to me when I needed to talk helped aid in the advancement of my character. Because anytime I wanted to say something, I'm like, well, you have to read this. You have to look at it. Which I think helped.
Also, do you think it's your favorite character because you put so much effort into it, trying to, like,
I also
get this DM to listen to you?
Maybe. But it was...
That makes it sound like a good thing. It's not a good thing.
It was a lot of them talking over me and me just nodding my head and rolling to save them. And I've been trying to avoid that, but often playing with those specific people still today always feels hard. Because their versions of fun is always doing some crazy, wacky thing instead of following the plot, and so the rest of us are just like, there you go. There you two go again. Taking the spotlight while 3 other females sit and watch. And it's a big thing that I grow tired of, because I know being talked over is like one of the biggest...
So that really what I'm trying to say...
Sorry, Kyle Perkins is dead.
We've killed him. It was for the beating the meat comment.
Nina, how do you think the game? Lanina, how do you think? How do you think that game might have been different for you had you not had that particular flaw? Because it's really like an unfortunate flaw because of the political, social stuff you're talking about. I mean, taking a woman's voice,
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure.
I love metaphors.
I think if I was blind or deaf, they would have used me as a handicap.
Wait, like to get in line quicker at roller coasters?
Yeah. Like, they would be like, we have to make sure to be careful of Kayla, or bad things will happen.
What was your name?
Kayla.
That's
it was longer.
lovely.
It was a 3-part name. She was a chess, so long.
Oh, I don't know what these words are. Sorry, I've never seen Star Wars in my life.
Blue with red eyes. It was great.
That was a joke.
I'm not entirely sure what would have happened if I could speak the entire time, because there were points when the data pad was destroyed, or et cetera, and like sign language wasn't really a thing then.
It's
so I
strange.
had
It's a time, long time ago, before sign language. I
forgot. And so it was just frantic movements and like lightsaber swinging.
Do you think if you could yell, it would be better?
Yeah.
Just start yelling at them. Mm-hmm. I would yell at them like as a person.
Well, it was also early on in my gaming career, so it was a lot of me just like taking the back seat, not wanting to make it harder for everybody else.
Yeah, it kind of goes into like another point that I wanted to make, because a a lot of people will say, well, why, didn't if this girl was upset with what I was doing or what I was saying, why didn't they just speak up? And I think that, like, the main misunderstanding that happens between men and women is that a lot of times, like, women don't speak up because you have to consider, like, sometimes, especially if you don't know the person at all or very well, you actually have to consider, like, the possibility of danger, like, in assessing the situation. Mm-hmm. Like, whether you think that person is just kind of a jerk, or are they potentially unstable, or are they going to, like, follow you to your car? Yeah. And so I think that women are a lot more likely to go to, like, the GM or another player, like somebody that they feel like they can trust to go to. And it's really important for those people to take these things seriously. A lot of what tends to happen is that, somebody will go to the GM and they'll say this person is, it's really bothering me what this person is saying. And the GM will be like, oh, he's just kidding around, or he doesn't mean it or anything. And they won't actually talk to them. They'll just make it kind of the woman's problem, like you're being too sensitive or something. Yeah. And so, like, especially if you start getting, like, multiple complaints about the same person. And it made me think, Hayley, what you were saying earlier about that, the other girl in that one group, like, getting mad at you instead of at the guy. Yeah. It was probably just she felt safe getting mad at you. You know what I mean? Maybe she didn't really feel safe getting mad at him, but she felt safe getting mad at you. Like, you were a target she felt like she could get angry at.
Not to mention the risk of them just blowing it under the water. Like, just like, oh, no, we're not doing that. That's not, like, a thing. Or any sort of, like, variation of that. Of, like, you're just being overly sensitive.
Right.
And, like, there's no stigma against you. This is just how the game goes.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, that, like, just goes back to what I was saying. Like, you can have an occasional slip up and not be a jerk, but, like, once you've been told, like, this bothers me, if you keep doing it, like, you can no longer say, well, I can't control what reaction they have. At this point, you can, because you can stop doing what you're doing that for a fact makes them uncomfortable.
The danger thing is super interesting to me because, like, I feel it. Mm-hmm. Like, been there, done that, had to assess the situation to be like, should I speak up, should I not?
Yeah.
Due to, like, literal danger to my physical self. Guys don't believe that.
No,
I find when I bring it up, like if I bring up a complaint and they're just like, oh no, he's just goofing off, and I'm like, are you sure? Because, like, are you sure he's not going to hurt me? And they're like, he would never. Mm-hmm. I've been hurt by a lot of people that said they would never.
Right.
But I think another, like, almost equally insidious thing is when you complain or want to complain and can't because you ruin the fun.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the danger thing, like, that's a big red flag, and that's a thing that we talk about a lot. But I think the other thing that, like, keeps me quiet than that is I don't want to ruin the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the killjoy, the feminazi, or whatever it is.
I've been there before, and oftentimes I don't say anything.
I don't either.
Yeah, and then eventually when you do say something, they're like, well, why didn't you tell us before? And then you're the villain, and it's your fault.
And then you have to go into the danger conversation, then that's super fun. That circle, it's great.
Not to mention, on like, that little same topic, often or not, when a guy complains, it gets resolved
immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that's a thing that I see very often of, like, I could be having the same issue, like, a month ago. I was like, what the heck is this? I don't want to play this game. I don't want to do this specific time. And they're like, oh, it'll be fine. Like, it'll be fun. We'll have a good time. And then a month later, some other topic was like, oh, I don't want to play that game. And they're like, all right, we'll play a different one. Mm. And it enrages me.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What about? I'm confused about what happens. Like, someone says they don't want to play the game anymore.
If a girl, female, it's like, I don't really want to play this way. I don't want to do this or that. It makes me uncomfortable. I'm not having fun.
It doesn't sound fun even.
And it doesn't
It'll be
matter.
ignored.
They'll be like, it'll be fun. Like, don't worry about it. Like, just try and relax and have. It's just.
But
a
if
game.
a guy says something immediately, they're like,
straight
"Oh yeah, bro, no,
do
we
it.
can quit that. We'll stop doing that."
Yeah.
I see.
And it's just like, what do you do?
Yeah.
It just frustrates me because these problems only happen because of small biological differences that people share. When we could all just be sitting around and enjoying games. Like, why does it matter?
Institutionalized sexism.
Yeah, no, it just really upsets me.
Wow, what a concept! Oh my god! Wait a minute! Cracked the code! It's because of sexism, guys! I had no fucking clue.
But like, that's what I'm saying, is that like, it just bothers me because it hinders the game so much.
Yeah.
And
I can't play the game as well because I have ovaries!
it's just,
I like that you're No, I'm with you, and I'm on the same page. I really am. Funny way you phrased it. I don't like sexism because it hinders the game. I don't like sexism because it puts me in fucking danger. Okay.
That too. But,
I'm teasing like a god.
I do
I'm
have a
with
thing
you.
to further this, which is going back to, Kyle, you said this a bit before about how, when you walk into game shops, you see more younger people. Whenever I think about games and games I've enjoyed, they've always been female players that have brought me in. And for example, when I first started playing with this group, it was a myriad of what this table looks like right now, but my very dear friend brought me in, and by that I mean she said that she was doing a game. I was like, great, I'm gonna join that now, and leached onto her and never let go. But I feel the most safe and I feel the most comfortable when it's the female players who bring me in, because I know that they want me there because I like to play games, not because, oh, they're a lady.
Yeah. I was gonna say, like, I wasn't going to join this group until, like, you'd mentioned before that you were playing, but until you mentioned that it was you and Nina. I was just like, oh, okay, well, cool, that's fine. Yeah, love it.
Yeah, same with me. Like, when Clayton told me that there were a lot of times when the women actually outnumbered the guys, and I was like, heck yeah.
I think Katie brought me into gaming to flirt with me, so there's that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, something I really enjoy is that my current partner, I get to say that I brought him in to fuck.
Oh, wrong.
Hold on.
I brought them into RPGs.
In that order, to date, fuck, gaming.
Yes. Okay, well, I honestly, I couldn't date someone because I wanted to see how he would treat other people in the room, because my other RPG group is predominantly female. And, I wanted to see how
was the only dude in that one.
was the only dude. And my other partner, but they're
Who?
Do you remember my really shitty
No.
ex?
No, I've never,
never happened. But I brought him in because I wanted to see how he would treat the other players, and it was great. And now he's actually our DM, and he's wonderful, and I love him.
Hot tip: if you're thinking about dating someone, bring them into RPGs to see their true selves.
People, yeah, for real. I wanted to see how he would treat us.
You could also do that by going to a restaurant and seeing how he treats the waiter.
I know, but games are more fun.
This is a dating advice podcast, right?
But I don't think I've ever been in a predominantly female, like, group.
Here we are. We've made it happen.
No.
KD.
Who?
And
we're predominantly female for a
Eventually.
really long time.
But then they all abandoned us.
Well,
But, like, I don't know. The group I consistently play online with is 2 girls and then 3 guys. And, well, it's not even.
I just cringed because it scared me. I'm soft.
But I don't think retract. I don't think I've ever played an RPG game with only females. Ever.
Oh yeah, never. Sorry.
Or an RPG, like a tabletop game.
Hey guys, we should get our one shot.
Guys, yeah. Girls' night.
I was close
I love
with,
that idea.
vampires, but
We had one guy, and it was me, Nina, and then was our token guy. And he was great.
Wait, isn't he your token straight guy?
He is our token straight guy. Sorry, we're real gay over there. It's fine.
Over there.
On the gay side.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
No.
Even my the other game that I run, my Innocence game in World of Darkness, that's also predominantly female. Because it's
We're
me,
taking over.
and then it's just
Are taking over the world.
Apparently, if you're a girl who wants to play RPGs, come to Athens, Ohio. We're a fucking haven, I guess.
We'll play with you. Oh my god, yeah. Play games, guys.
I'll play
gals,
games
people.
with you.
I will. I love games.
Oh no.
I have a couple of questions. As somebody who runs a lot of games, there's been a lot of like case study here about what not to do or whatever. But for one thing, earlier we were talking about the effects of sexism and objectification, sexual assault, whatever, on the player characters. But what if it happens to an NPC in the game? Like you could go as basic as evil wizard runs off with the princess, up to whatever you want. I mean, crazy theocrats burning a woman at the stake for being a witch, and
it
on
sucks,
and on and on.
and it's awful, and I'd prefer not to deal with it. But I feel like it's different because it's your character and you have agent. It's like an NPC because it's all of the DMs. It's in their small world, so we can't really change what they do. But when they do it to us, it's like interfering on our part of storytelling.
Right. It's not forcing it onto a particular character.
Yeah, although I would honestly prefer if there were different storylines. I mean, every story has a wizard taking away Princess Peach or whatever the fuck it is. There are more interesting stories out there.
Bowser's more of a dinosaur king than a wizard.
I believe you forgot to open that with actually, and then a nose push and a fedora tech.
Get them all in there.
Yeah, but I feel like it's different because those aren't real people. When it's our characters, it's real people who have to have that, deal with that, and deal with their characters, rather than someone that's made up from thin air by the DM.
I agree. Interestingly enough. Wow.
That's
never happened before. Anyway, I kind of hate it mostly because it is, in my opinion, boring. Like she said, you see it all the time. It's something you see in all movies and books and whatnot, and it's just a thing that consistently happens, and it seems really cliche, like a cliche to avoid throwback, and just tiresome and trite and boring, and it feels like there's nothing to it because you're just taking something that always happens and you're making it happen. I don't know.
Though I don't think that there is, like, it's just like a story. Like, it's not the specific players. Like, as long as you're not, forcing rape culture into your story, like a basic story like that, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't think it's like, sure, it's boring and cliche, but, like, it's a story a lot of people tell, and a lot of even female writers write about. But
there's also ways to, like, turn it on its head.
Well, yeah, but, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with writing about it, because that is a classic story, so to speak, and there's also boring stories.
I was gonna say, like, you're right, it might not be wrong, but in my opinion, it's weak storytelling.
Yeah, like, that's not wrong, but it's boring. But that's, like, most cliches.
And there's also kind of a mentality of, oh boy, there's a girl in the group. Now we get to do a rape story.
Yeah, oh my god, hey, if we could just keep sexual assault out of the games at a 100% rate. Like, I can't, for the life of me, and I've thought about this a lot, I cannot think of a reason why you would put it in a game to an NPC, to a player character, to anything. I don't...
There's no reason! Exclamation point.
There are certain kinds of creatures in different games that's like part of that creature's attributes. So you got like the succubus, the incubus.
Okay, that's
vampires. That happens all the time. You mentioned satyrs. They're always hypersexualized, rapey creatures.
Yeah, they are.
And you can't really have those in a game represented the way that they
there's
for what they are,
right,
without the sexual element.
But there's a difference between sexual elements and sexual assault elements.
Yeah.
For example, with an incubus that happened in our Abena game. He was not super rapey. It was a contract that, like, you both consented to. Don't ask why I know this. But it's different. Like, you could have sexual aspects of your game. There is a difference between, it's different having sexual elements of your game, which we already had a podcast about how to have sexual elements in different manners that are okay and not okay, and having sexual assault things. Satyrs. They're tricky. They like puzzles and stuff. Yeah, they have an affinity for sexual things, but there's other aspects to that character that you can have.
Right.
I play vampires, and there's other things that we do besides fuck, although I play a character that only wants to fuck. I'm the exception of my own rule.
But my point was that those elements don't come into the game until there is a female sitting at the table.
Yeah.
Right.
That is what I've seen the majority of the time.
Pretty much.
Right, that's true. And you also
Like,
you don't have to use those elements because, like, the Tuesday game that we're playing, I'm playing a half-orc. And it says, like, right in the description of Savage Worlds for a half-orc that, like, you know, most pairings that result in a half-orc are not consensual. And so you probably have, like, really, like a very strange, like, relationship with your past or whatever. And I'm like, no. You know, I've decided.
You know what? I'm not going to do that. Thank you, though.
I'm going to have just an orc and a human, and they just got it on.
And they're
like,
in love.
You know,
Aww.
Right.
That's so nice.
I'm just like, yeah, exactly.
New
I was
fucking
like,
stories.
no,
Nope,
right.
still
You
gross.
can change that.
Love is real.
You can change that kind of shit if you really want to.
The problem is that it's not balanced when it comes in.
Yeah.
It's not that, the male characters have been having this aspect of the story been happening to them before the female player joins the game. But once the female player joins the game, on one hand, it might only be against the female player, or it becomes a thing that happens to every character to be balanced, in quotes, but it wasn't an aspect of the game before
Right.
that female was sitting at the table.
And
That's how I've seen it.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like I
how I
almost
feel.
wonder if guys would feel weird about having a sexual assault aspect to the story if it was just guys sitting around. But as soon as they're a woman, they're like, oh, it's not weird anymore because there's a woman here.
That's
you know what I
that's
mean?
what happens to women.
Yeah,
Like, that's normal.
right. And they're just kind of like, when it's actually like backwards, it would be like, I feel like less gross if they were already, you know, occasionally using that as a story aspect.
But they're not.
I just want to play games, and I don't want to be punished for wanting to play games.
Yeah.
Or reminded of the ugliness of real life that you want to
Yeah.
avoid.
That's why
Like,
we
I've cried
play.
during games because of the way I've been treated just because I'm, like, a female character, and it sucks a lot. And we just all want to get together and tell a story that's new and interesting.
And it's kind of like, you know, there are a lot of people that will say they don't want any sort of darkness in games because they're using it for escapism.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there are certain things where, you know, if you play a dark storyline in a game, you can kind of, with that sense of remove from it, you can enjoy kind of the beauty that's in horrible things that happen when you're looking at them from a distance and you're just playing them as a story. But when you take something that somebody really experiences in real life, you don't get that sense of remove from it. Like you're already dealing with it every day. It becomes something that it just reminds you of what you're already dealing with. Because you can't get that removed from it.
Something I was reading that I can't remember, nor could I find the name of the game. I think it was an article about games that I can send to you later on this specific game that had stats for women as less. So where a man fighter level 2 would be, it was a hag level 2 had the same power.
Love it.
And stuff like that. And how this specific game had beauty standards and only females had beauty as a
Hell
trait.
yeah. I hate it.
It
Sounds
was
dumb.
an awful thing to read. And sure, it's definitely the writer's fault. That's terrible. But there are probably more games out there that I couldn't find because trying to do research on this is just finding a lot of stigma in the community in general.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exclamation
a lot
point.
of the excuses that I've heard from them is that, like, well, in real life, men are predominantly stronger by nature, and I'm like, it's a fantasy world, and I all just want to level up. Like, if we put in the same time on games, we should all get the same XP, we should all level up the same way. Well, I mean, like, level up for your character stuff, but, like, it's sex
Like,
and gender should not be a part of it.
I understand different races, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fantasy race. How can it be that different if you already don't know what it does? There's no fact, there is no truth on any of these races and what they are versus male versus female and which is stronger and which is not, because you've seen male orcs. Obviously they can be the same strength, but things like that are still taken into consideration. But, I don't know, it just gets on my nerves. Though I don't have a ton of examples on it. I just thought I'd bring it up.
What if a game system presented differences between males and females, like statistically, but it was balanced? Like, for example, what if, men got +1 strength, but women got +1 agility or something like that? Like, would you still think that's a problem? I mean, I ask because I thought about this for a long time with Apocalyptia, because I'm going for like extreme like realism as much as possible. And I mean, the strongest man in the world is far stronger than the strongest woman in the world. And, you know, there's just structural differences in bodies for various reasons. But
I think one of the things that bothers us is it would suck, honestly, but it would almost be the same as, like, oh, you're a halfling, so you get this plus and this plus, rather than if you're a half orc, where you get this plus and this plus because of, you know, height differences. So I guess if it would be balanced mechanically, that we would each get, like, a plus to different things. My only concern would be that, like, you'd only get pluses to, like, charisma, because women are more beautiful and fun. No, I know, like, agility and stuff. So, like, we still get, like, the same physical. I don't know. But I feel like those can be done based on how you make your character rather than from the start. I don't think that that's important. I think having a clear base and then building your character up by how they want to do it is more fun and better.
I feel like it's okay to have those differences if they're not so pronounced that you literally cannot create a female fighter or a male archer because they'll be so gimped. You know what I mean? By those pluses or minuses or whatever.
I mean, I don't have much of an opinion on this, so I agree with Beth, but like, it would be annoying, but there are worse and more annoying roles, and there are worse things in regards to sexism in gaming. This one doesn't strike me as that important.
I think there's no room for it in a fantasy setting to be like, I'm trying to be extremely accurate in my fantasy game. Women are less strong, and so they're going to get nothing but a detriment to their strength. It's a fucking, there's orcs, and there's fucking fairies and shit. Like, that doesn't matter.
That's a pleasant mind about sexism and racism
in
like, fantasy games. I'm just like, right, because like, we got orcs, but we got fantasy sexism, y'all. Hell yeah.
But if you're trying to make a essentially dice-based simulator of actual humans in an apocalypse, I mean, on the one hand, like, there's just more meat to eat on a guy. Like, you know, if you're cooking up people to eat them, like, you're gonna want to look for, like...
Put that on the soundboard, please. More meat to eat.
I just watched My Friend Dahmer, too. I want to throw that out there. So this
we've been learning a lot about Dahmer today.
But if you're going that way, a woman would taste better because of the higher fat content.
It's actually, if you want to cook a body, you always want to start from the buttocks because of the tender meat.
I can't count the number of episodes that you said that. It's time to stop.
No!
You look like you had something to say earlier.
You did.
Oh, you mean Lanina?
Lanina.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I think that's fine, because there are differences in men and women, it's a fact. And it's statistically, women are more creative generally, and men are more strong or whatever, and things like that. It's shown that due to years and years of Darwinism and all, etc., that men have learned to hunt. And women have learned to work around the box. And, like, if you were to throw all of us into an apocalyptic setting right now, you guys would definitely be more physically fit than us.
I drink a lot of beer.
I'd offer myself. This is unfair.
I'm not saying what we would do, but in an apocalypse, like, you guys would definitely have, like, the physical advantages that we do. And that's, like, just, like, an unfortunate fact. I mean, just give it a couple more 100 years and we'll all be about the same looking and about the same height, weight, strength, etc. We'll all just be a bunch of inbreds.
I don't like that you brought up creativity as a thing that women are better at.
It's
because I don't know how you quantify that. It's weird
cognitive
to me.
thinking.
Well, I'm just saying, like, brain differences are so much more, like, people that claim that, like, women brains and men brains are inherently different bothers me more than, like, the biological of, like...
Well...
But women
bodies.
have more neurons connecting parts of the brain.
It's like a thing. Also...
I don't know much about this, but, like, it struck me as, like, ugh.
Well, considering the only other thing that I would be able to say is that women are more agile, which is just generally false. You're agile through practice. Like,
and
I mean,
women
are more
socialized in that women tend to do activities that engender flexibility.
It's
cool for women to do gymnastics. It's not cool for men to do it.
No, I have a question. Aren't women more balanced? Isn't that a thing? Our center of balance is lower?
I think it really depends on the woman.
Yeah, I was gonna say it depends
let's
on
not talk about
on specifically body types at that point, because there are women.
So does strength.
Yeah, we're talking about
I'm
averages
talking about
here.
an average look. I'm not talking about specifics. Like,
Yeah, and
there are
on
some
average,
women
women are more balanced, right? Like, isn't that the
Women
actual
have a
thing?
lower center of gravity. Men have wider shoulders and bigger upper bodies. Most
That's
of
where
our
the
muscle
agility
mass
comes
is
in,
upper
correct?
body. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, cool. Oh my god. What a
Yeah,
concept.
and, like,
I
the-
know
the
very
stuff
few
that-
agile people in general.
You see a lot more like really high-end female Olympic gymnasts, for example, than males. And the stuff that males do tend to be more upper body related stuff, you know, the parallel stuff and all that. But like, you know, all these ridiculous like triple flips and all this stuff that you see, you know, young female gymnasts doing. There are not many men in the world that can do stuff like that.
Which is why I think, like, in your specific question about, like, the apocalyptic rules and, like, the pluses and minuses, whatever. Fine. Like, it tracks, apparently.
I debated about it a lot, and, you know, I didn't know if it should be, like, bonuses or if it should just be, like, set ceilings on things, because...
I think bonuses would work
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
That
Didn't
way,
like the ceilings thought. Don't know why.
If you were working on a...
Reminds you of other ceilings in the world.
Like the kind you can see through.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, there never will be a woman that is as strong as the strongest man on Earth. That's...
Well, until we start doing, like, you know, custom bodies and shit at Eclipse Phase style.
Then you're not talking about humans.
Talking about transhumans.
Those exist. Oh my god, it's a transgender joke. I'm sorry. I'm a WGSS major.
Oh, I thought you were
throw
making
it
a
out.
joke about the people who were injecting themselves with CRISPR.
People with USB drives, like, sewn beneath their skin.
Gross.
If you are homebrewing a system out there and you are considering or have already put in a gender that is in any way only lesser in some way, it's time to stop. It's time to take that file on your computer, drag it over to the recycling bin, right-click that, empty the recycling bin, take your computer,
Burn it.
shut it off, take out the battery, unplug it from the wall, turn it upside down, remove the hard drive, take that hard drive, and shove it really far up your ass. But first, you need to pull your head out of your ass to make room for the hard drive. And laptop hard drives are pretty small.
So
Nobody
you did
wants
all
to
of
play
that
that
with your
game.
head up your ass? That's kind of amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Nobody will want to play your game except for people who are just like you. And I don't want a room full of people just like you playing that game, because that's horrifying. I have no problem myself with, like, there being differences in genders in your game that you're making, but if you inherently are just like, yep, females are not as strong, you will never see a female fighter that is as good as a male fighter, and you're making this game. I don't care that might be how it is in real life. That's fucking boring. No one's gonna want to play that shit.
No one wants to play real life.
Fair point.
Love watching Kyle be mean to a hypothetical person. Like, he's really mean to a fake person.
There's like one person out there listening to this. Like,
Yeah, good. I drink your tears. Drink them.
If there's one person like that out of the 15 people we have listening.
yeah. It's a high percentage of our audience you're insulting.
Big
Yeah.
yikes.
Well, guys, what do you say we stop this bullshit and start rolling some dice?
We're gonna end on my threat. God.
This has been a production of Alien Familiar Media. You can find past episodes and more at alienfamiliar.com. You can email us at alienfamiliarmedia@gmail.com. This production is protected under a Creative Commons non-commercial attribution, no derivatives license. Music for this episode is Suburban Outlaw by Forget the Whale and can be found at freemusicarchive.org.
Bye.